Your life.
Yeah, yeah. Good evening, our viewers. Good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are watching us. Mola Ogun Michael by name, your regular host on this platform. So today is Democracy Day in Nigeria, as we all know. And if you are not knowing, if you don't know, let me just educate you that today, Democracy Day used to be 29th of May every year, but things turned the other way around last year when our president and his cabinet members decided to change the Democracy Day to June 12th every year. So in Nigeria today, we are celebrating our Democracy Day, and we always appreciate you for joining us in this conversation, and we are very grateful. So we are here to discuss about our democratic journey as a nation. And of course, we have eminent individuals who have been part of the democratic process to do justice to this conversation. And I'm sure that we have a lot to learn. So, without much waste of time, I want to specially welcome Mr. Ishowola Rewaju, a public affairs analyst, to the show as he shares his thoughts with us on this show today, and of course, Mr. Abiodun Paul joining us all the way from the Asian world, India. So we sincerely thank you. We anticipate our third guest to equally join this platform. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
As
Michael.
I have earlier stated, today's thank you so much. I think we are seeing what is happening out there on the social media space, and everybody wants to actually get involved in this democratic business. We are not young, we are not too old, but we do believe that we are part of this journey. So thank you so much. So, having said that, I think let us go back to memory lane. Nigeria returned back to democracy in 1999, as we know, which commenced the beginning of Fourth Republic. And a lot has happened in our democratic journey ever since then, from different administration, the Obasanjo administration, the President Yaradua administration, the Jonathan's administration, and of course, here we are still continuing the democratic journey in this Fourth Republic where we have President Muhammadu Buhari. But of course, we know that a lot has happened, a lot is happening, and a lot will continue to happen. But one thing is very sure, and which I believe our guests here they are here to do justice to that for us. So I want to go straight to Mr. Ishowo now. You have been part of this journey, you have been part of this process. In your own opinion, just tell us what you make of our democratic journey since we all started in 1999. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, viewers across the world. I want to say that we thank God where we are, notwithstanding that what we posited as a Democrat, that if Nigeria leaves the environment of military, the unconstitutional government, and will define what we want through our democratic process, I mean election, definitely is going to change the face of governance in the country. Just like how we agreed that the worst of civilian government is far better than the military government, simply because our civilian government revolves around the people. As it has been defined out there that democracy can be defined as the government of the people by the people and for the people. There is no way in any phase you want to look into it. Democracy has to do with the public interest. If that should be the case, then we agreed that having a democratic enterprises is far better than the government that took over through the unconstitutional means. By and large, when we look at it, since 1999 that we have redefined the face of Nigerian governance, actually, we started fairly well, especially when we had the experienced man, Obasanjo, who at the time governed this country as a military man. And he came on board as a result of the consensus. You know, he was a Yoruba man. We used his emergence to settle the score of June uh, 12, 1993, when Yoruba won the election from Ogun State. And the move and shake of Nigerian politics demonstrate that the best person, to lead the country at this moment is to have people from the Southwest, which is Obasanjo. And Obasanjo was able to start well simply because the image of Nigerian has already, shattered and battered prior to 1999 when Abacha led the country like nobody. And at external level, Nigeria has been reduced as a country being governed by, a tyrant. But when Obasanjo came in, he was able to move around to redeem the image of the country. No, I wasn't surprised when the like of late Fawayimi described the president of Obasanjo as the most flying president. He flew a lot simply because he moved around to reject the image of the country. He did it well. And when it comes to the issue of corruption, he knew that corruption was being on ground before he emerged as the president of the country. And he established what we have as EFCs today and ICPC. We thank him for that. But when you look at the democratic process, which I believe seems to be, the medium through which people convey their message, either
Michael, are you there?
Hello?
Hello, Michael. Yeah, I think
Yes, can
he probably lost his network.
connection.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I think we go back to him when he joins us as the internet error. Let me go to Mr. Paul now, because I think we are all part of this journey. Of course, I was barely young when Nigeria returned back to democracy, but we have read a lot of information. We have heard a lot of things happening in our democracy. What do you make of our democratic journey since it all began in 1999?
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we have been moving. We seem to have been moving, from the military rule towards a democratic process. But I think we have not really moved very far. I think the journey has been very, very slow. I think our progress has been hampered by so many things. And one of the major things that I think has hampered our progress or movement has been the influence of military, the influence of the military guys or the military power on this so-called democracy. I said so-called democracy because uh, democracy ought to give power to the people. But what we've seen, even since we began to vote, except that of Abiola's election, you find out that many people do not believe in the democratic process. And as we advance, we are supposed to advance. We are supposed to have been improving. You find out that more and more people are getting discouraged, and then uh, the percentage of the voters is quite less compared to the number of people that are of voting age. So, which means there is less participation. Most of the middle class don't even participate at all. Most of the people in the middle class don't participate at all in elections. And you find out that is reflected in the caliber of politicians, in the caliber of political office holders that we have been engaging. That's my opinion, though, but I think it is true. And judging from what Mr. Ishowo was mentioned earlier, he said something about we have moved away from an unconstitutional way into a sort of a constitutional setting. But then there has been so many argue about even the constitution of Nigeria, the current constitution of Nigeria, that it was not a constitution by the Nigerian people. It's a constitution that was designed by the military, a constitution designed and approved by a few men, and who obviously do not represent the majority. And so if politics, or if democracy rather, if democracy is a government of the people, by the people and for the people, like Mr. Ishowo was defining earlier, then when you look at the constitution, because I think constitution, a lot of people have argued that constitution is just a book, I mean just a paper, you know, but then it's something that is binding us. It's something that should contain a list of our agreement, the agreement of how we want to be governed, how we want to be ruled. But then, if this is such a book, such an important document, doesn't come from us, if I am saying, I can say categorically that I wasn't represented when that constitution was drafted, when it was approved, I wasn't represented. Majority of Nigerians would agree that they were not represented. So then perhaps I'm not, I may be wrong, but perhaps that is why we are where we are today, because it doesn't really represent us. So this is just my observation in terms of where we have been since we started democracy. Thank you. Are you there, Michael?
Thank you so much for your submission. Nigeria is actually trying to the regular thing. It rained here just a couple of minutes ago, but notwithstanding, we get the conversation on, and I want to believe that our followers are joining this conversation. I just want to encourage you share this conversation so that others who are following us can get informed on what is being discussed by our eminent guest this evening. Yeah. I mean, certain foundations have been laid for this conversation. Mr. Paul already snowballed us into discussing about the constitutional issues, the constitutional foundation to political problem in Nigeria, and that is one of the things that is being discussed in our polity today. But notwithstanding, we definitely delve into the conversation proper. Now, I'm coming back to Mr. Ishowo. Now, nice to have you back again. Despite the efforts made by the state and non-state actors to improve our democracy, to get the democracy working, despite yet the narratives are same, and it won't be wrong to say that it's getting more complex by day, the way things are being done, because the elements of democracy, which are freedom of press, press freedom, freedom of movement, association, and all lots, they are still being should I say, they are lacking in our democracy, particularly at the time we are now. Should we say that our democracy is not making any progress, or are we moving backward? What is your position to that, sir?
Yes, I like the question. And the essence why people advocated to have a democratic system of government in Nigeria, they were of the belief that if it is how it is obtainable in a globalized world, definitely democracy should be the best for us in the country as well. But when you look at it, what we have here is just a stereotype of what is obtainable in advanced climate, because we are saying that we copied our own system of government from what is obtainable in the US out there. But when you compare and contrast, what we have here is nearly opposite to what they are playing out there. As of today, Michael, look at it today, when people supposed to have been jubilating for the current administration to have yielded to the call people have been making that May 29 should be met for swearing in. Why June 12 should be announced as the Democracy Day? Simply because the most clearest, fairness election we had so far in the country since the return of the democracy was that of 1993, won by Abiola. There are some certain uniqueness about it. One, it was an election contested by Yoruba, deputized by the Hausa man, and Yoruba man defeated the Hausa man who came from the Kano state, the most populated state. That is one. Two, when you look at the context of Abiola and Babakane Kingibe, the two are Muslims, were Muslims against Bashir Tova, who even picked Christian as his running mate at that time. Yet Abiola won the election. And when you look at that, it shows that the nationhood had been attained at that point in time, where people were after the credibility of the candidate, where people were after the competence, the experience, the capability of the candidate. Unlike today, when things will revolve around the tribe, ethnicity, that's the card available. Either you are competent or you are not competent. There is nothing like that. Today, look at it. When I expected Nigeria to be jubilated that after all, the current administration have yielded to make June 12 as the Democracy Day. Rather, people are making protests from one state or the other in the sense that people don't really felt the importance of the so-called democracy we are practicing here. The freedom of expression have been gagged. The freedom of association have been gagged. The freedom of movement have been gagged. So today, even those that protested, actually, when you look at me personally, I don't subscribe to the protest every time as the way to convey our appropriate message. But unfortunately, in the climate we find ourselves, we have leaders that don't believe, in fact, in table, negotiation as a way to iron out the gray areas. But this is the kind of thing they believe. But today, when you see how police are throwing, a tear gas canister to an African Nigeria simply because they are registering their mind, that shows that what we have here, we call it democracy, but in actual practicability is a replica of what was on the table in 1984 when President Buhari was the head of state. So the question is, if actually people advocated to have democracy in the land, and this is where we find ourselves, the question of, are we truly gained? Is democracy truly the best way for us as a country? I would rather say no. Because when you look at what we are facing today,
Mr. Esho, I think you are leading the conversation with a very utter basis, and I love that. I hope it's sustained. But before we go into those things you want to mention, because it all boils down to what is happening in the system, let me quickly go to Mr. Paul. Mr. Mr. Esho made mention of something very cardinal to our politics. He talked about the card MKO Abiola and Babagana Kingibe played when they were contesting the election as against Tofa and others. Would you, in your own opinion, do you think our politicians, they've used religion, one of the core elements, to bring about setback in our democracy?
Okay, I think religion around the world, it's not just in Nigeria and Africa, is a powerful tool that has been used in history. When you look at history, religion has always been a means for getting power. It's always been a means for for people to seek out their interest. And I think it was an instrument. It was a major instrument that was even used even during the Abiola election, as well as region, or because I noticed Mr. Eshowo kept referring to uh, you know sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so he kept talking about Abiola as a Yoruba man. And I agree that Abiola was a Yoruba man, but that election was a Nigerian election, not a Yoruba election. But the fact is that there is something that exists between the North and the South at that time, especially the Southwest, which is the fact that Abiola was a Yoruba man, was a Muslim, and the North is Muslim majority. So which means the North also believe maybe if they elect a Muslim, that he probably would help further their agenda, whatever interest that they have. And don't get me wrong, that politics is always about interest. And no interest is good, no interest is bad. So religion has always played a role. Even in the current administration, religion is a major key player in the election that brought in Buhari.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
These are hot statements. Yeah, Mr. Bello, we are glad to have you on the show. I think it's nice to have you here. And we have been discussing what you love to do the most. It's about politics, it's about democracy, it's about governance. And here we are today discussing about our journey after 22 years of a journey into democracy. And I think it would be nice to actually hear your own view, because everyone have shared their thoughts about our journey into democracy since 1999. I think it would be nice for us to hear your view. What do you make of the journey of Nigeria back to democracy since 1999?
Hello, good afternoon,
Mr. Bello, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olaogun. I appreciate you. I appreciate other very beautiful analysts. I also want to appreciate the presence of my very senior comrade and boss, Comrade Ishowu. Thank you for always doing what you know how to do best. Even though I know less the other man, but at least we are meeting today, and I wish we will meet again and we'll meet again in peace and not in pieces. Having said that, 22 years of democratic system of ruling in Nigeria, which way are we? Personally, and with respect to the organization that I'm leading, we didn't join any celebrations today. Do you know why? Because of 22 years of dilapidated democratic system. We call it dilapidated. If you look from 1999 till date, you will see that we are still where we are. And the question in the mouth of Nigeria is, why are we where we are? If we have to ask that question, then it calls for serious answer. You will recall that we left the dictatorial or military system of government in 1999, haven't brought in Obasanjo with the hope that things will go better. But today, freedom of information, freedom of speech, and several of these things, we are still where we are. Can you imagine at a point in time in Nigeria, we are more united than the way we are today. You said something while you were talking, and that was what I was trying to bring about, that Abiola Kingigbe ticket is a Muslim ticket. But today, can we have a Muslim ticket and there won't be uproar in the south? There won't be uproar in the east? That is to tell you that we are more divided than the way we are united. And I must also put it to you, now with respect to security, the extent at which the security structure was there is not what we are now. Then we have a security structure with action. But today we have a security structure without action. You have a security structure where a governor will go with over 500 to 700 million naira security votes monthly. Yet the security of that state is at alarming rate. They kept shouting the federal. But the truth of the matter is, the kind of leadership we have after 22 years, they are not worth it. And they have not been giving us what we really want. Even with the followers, we only shout the federal government. How many of us how many times have you and I, who are the governor, who are the governor, move towards the door of the chairman of the local government, move towards the door of the governor, who are the custodian of the grassroots? That what exactly is happening? Let us hear from them. For instance, I read the write-up today that most times when allocation comes to the states through the governor he started an example of Delta State that 300 million is allotted to the state, to the local government chairman. Unfortunately, the governor will give 100 million to the local government chairman and sign that he collected 300 million. How many times you and I have gone to the door of that local government chairman to ask him what is really happening? Why as the governance, why haven't the grassroots felt the governance of his administration? But we don't. We only throw jibes and we only throw banters to the president, just like the way we have been doing. We did that to Obasanjo, we did that to Yar'Adua, we did that to Jonathan, we did that to Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and we are doing that to Buhari. Whereas we need to change our system through which we put our government on their toes. So personally, 22 years of democratic system, we are still living in a dilapidated system.
All right, since Nigeria has happened to Michael, I think I will just hold the fort for him till he joins us. Mr. Ishowo, let me ask Mr. Ishowo this question, since I just picked this up from where Mr. Bello was talking about the fact that there's focus on the presidency rather than other aspects of the government. What do you think is responsible for this, Mr. Ishowo?
Is debatable. Debatable in the sense that, hello, are you with me?
No, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
It's debatable in the sense that structurally we have 3 tiers of government: federal, state, and the local government. That is what is clearly stated in the Constitution. But when it comes to the practicability, one can hardly separate the 3 tiers of government, especially what you have between the state and the local government. Hardly could you see any of the state governor that want to allow the local government under them to be independent. The same governor that extremely find it difficult to allow the other 2 tiers of government under them at the state level. I mean the judiciary at the state and the legislative arm at the state level, which is constitutionally stated. And they refused, even up to this moment, to allow them to perform their function independently, simply because they have held them the financial control of the other arms of government. So in that wise, there won't be any strengthened democracy to get it right. But at the same time, when we say, why are we center our argument on the government at the center, as if the government at the center alone? Yes, the two are culpables. The government at the state level and at the center level. The government at the center level has some things structurally, because, like I said all that time, that in the Nigerian Constitution, 68 items is being controlled by the government at the center. Why only 12 items controlled by the state? Even the 12 controlled by the state, federal government still have certain control over it. So if that should be the case, that shows that the majority of the control of the structure and nature of Nigeria democracy is centered around the government at the center. And when you look at President Muhammadu Buhari today, when people question him yesterday about the security situation of the country, and he said that he only controls the government at the center. What about the state government? What are they doing? Forgetting that virtually all the security agencies are being controlled by the government at the center. We talk about the soldiers, talk about the DSS, talk about the civil defense, talk about the police, army, navy, even the air force are controlled by the government at the center. And this is why we have been advocating that there is need for us to devolve the power, to ensure that the power is being decentralized, in which the states have certain control of the power without the influence of the government at the center. As Muhammadu Buhari said that, the question is, what has he done about the confab of 2014 that discussed issues on how to reframe Nigeria democracy? What about the committee he appointed, headed by the governor of El-Rufai? Have they not submitted a report? Has the report not addressed certain challenges facing us at the country? What did he do about that? So to my surprise, for Mr. President to have said that, for us, if we want to restructure the country, then we need to take it through the National Assembly, forgetting that the executive can seek advice on the report submitted and send the executive bill to the National Assembly to debate that. If Mr. President wants it, as he pointed out, that restructuring is the way to go, then has he ever taken the bull by the horn? And we say no. So for him to have thrown to the National Assembly now, to have thrown to the National Assembly now, he's not being sincere enough to show that truly he wants restructuring.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Ishowo, for that powerful submission. We, of course, know all of this, and of course, I want to assume that people are watching. I know you have always rendered advocacy, you have talked heavily on all of these issues. Likewise, Mr. Bello, you have always rendered your opinion around this conversation. Now, let us look at it from this dimension. I'm coming to Mr. Bello now. At the moment, Nigeria seems to be at the Nigeria seems to be at the climax of democratic threats. I know Mr. Ishu already snowballed us into this side of the conversation, and you were trying to talk about it the other time. The level of challenges being faced by the present administration. Of course, it would be unfair to say that all of these were caused by the present administration, but one cannot but say the inability of this government to manage some of these also have contributed immensely to the challenges we are facing. These challenges are also not far-fetched from issues that all of us we are talking about. Now, I want to throw it to you, Mr. Isho. What is the way forward from where we are, and taking into consideration the present body language of this present administration as we journey into other years into other years in a democratic life?
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. You see, in my character, like I've always been saying on several fora, that I don't always like to talk about the problems. It's a well-known and it's obvious that Nigeria is at crossroads and we're having a lot of challenges. And the truth of the matter is, how do we go from here? And that should be the next point of call. And I'm happy that you just ask questions like that. You see, the truth of the matter is, whatever problems that anybody must have listed, be it from 1 to 100 or from A to Z, all of this problem will not come with solution except we clean our system. There's a systemic error. There's a systemic corruption. There's a systemic rapturing. And if the system is not cleaned, I'm afraid there's no solution. You see, Comrade Ishu talked about the confab reports that was given to this president, and the confab report was placed in 2014. If this confab report comes and President Muhammadu Buhari came in good faith to implement it, I'm afraid the implementation may still sit to zero level. If the system is not well structured. For instance, let me give you an example. The way we run the policy system in Nigeria is exactly the way it's run in USA. But how come it's working in USA and it's not working here? It's because of systemic corruption. Let me also cite an example for you. The former chief of army staffs, the security chiefs that left the shore of the security architecture for an ambassadorial position in a Senate climbs with a good system. Do you think the president will give them ambassadorial position in another country like USA? They give them 1 billion naira to purchase ammunition, to make necessary actions for our security, so as to combat the security problem in Northeast. Till date, we can't find the materials, neither do we have the guns or whatever that the money is made available for, and they have been given ambassadorial position. That is to tell you that there's a systemic decay. We need to make that system work before implementation of any confab or any stuff. Now, let me also point this out to you. Look at recently, you had the statement of President Muhammadu Buhari when he was interrogated on NTA. He talked about a lot of programs and about a lot of solutions. But I'm afraid if this system is not working, all of these solutions may not work. Look, for example, again, look at in JAMB, the JAMB exam. When Professor Lede came into JAMB, you saw what is happening. We can all see what is happening for the last 4 or 5 years, for the last 2, 3, 4 years. That is to tell you that if a system is not working, go and bring Prophet Muhammad, of the peace be upon him. Go and bring Jesus Christ. You will see that they will still lose. You had of Bola Ige. I think that was in 1999 or somewhat. He said he will turn stone to bread because he believed in who he is. He said, let them give him a particular position that he will make do of it. Bola Ige came in and he fumbled, not because Bola Ige does not have the wherewithal to do it, but because the system is heroic, but because the system is not good. So what we need to do now is to look for how to clean the system. One of such is we should look for a constitutional review.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bello, for that germane position you have made. And as when you were talking, I think I love the term you used, systemic rupturing. What a very wonderful and powerful language. But let me come to Mr. Paul. We have seen templates from other countries of the world. In terms of a national birth, independence, we are older than them. The likes of Malaysia, the likes of Singapore, and all other countries that we can use as examples. Mr. Paul, judging from the position of Mr. Bello, talking about the systemic rupturing, because to me, I believe that angels will not come from any part of the world to build a system, a functioning system in any democracy. We are seeing it working in other places. We have been talking about systemic rupturing. Let me use this language now. Since 1999, what do you think the problem is? Because to me, I believe that there can be no a functional system without people who are committed to building.
Okay, Michael, I'm hoping that I get your question. I know that Nigeria is happening to you seriously. So I was I, I was going to start from. Are you still talking, Michael?
No, we
Okay,
can hear you.
All
let
right,
me
please
just
go
quickly
ahead. You
read.
have you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start from my discussion with Mr. Ishowo before you came back in the other time. And he raised the issue of leadership. So I quickly check on my phone to see what definition, the first definition of Google, I mean, of leadership that I can have here. And I'm going to read it out to us. He said, leadership is the quality of an individual or a group of individuals to influence and guide followers. See, this is the basic problem that we have in Nigeria, is the problem of leadership, whether we like it or not. You see, the presidency in Nigeria, the reason why there is focus on it, and I'm talking directly to Mr. Bello now, the reason there is focus or attention on the presidency is because it carries a lot of power. There is so much power. I don't think there's any power, any president in the world that is as powerful as the Nigerian president as a result of the 1999 constitution. So much power, so much so much so much has been committed into the hands of the presidency, and so there's so much that is expected of whoever is there. They said to whom much is given, much is expected. It's as simple as that. See, what we need Buhari to do, or whoever is sitting in that Aso Rock, what we need that person to do is to model a behavior of what he expects to see in others. I am the leader of my home. You see, what I want to see in my wife, what I want to see in my children, what I want to see in my younger ones, and other people who are following me, it is my responsibility to model it out to them. I'm not just going to sit down and expect them to perform miracle when I'm not doing anything myself. You see, I watched the all these things that President Buhari was talking about a few days ago, and I felt disappointed. Honestly, I felt disappointed. Even though I look at, okay, maybe it's because of his age, because to me, President Buhari is operating in the 1970s, or maybe at most 83, 85. That's at its level mentally. That's where he's operating. That's why President Buhari is still talking about, what do you call it? Grazing route. In 2021, grazing route. And a lot of people, so-called educated people, let's even say President Buhari is not that educated, but educated people are also supporting and helping him to sell this idea. It is the failures of leadership that is what is killing us. Before now, I have lived in countries that has great leadership. You see, all of us, we've heard the story of Dubai. We've heard the story of the UAE generally. It is desert. They rarely get rain in a day. I mean, the year. Sometimes 2, 3. And we celebrate it on the street. But that is where people are stealing our money and going there to invest now, because they have one thing: leadership. They have oil. We even have oil. We probably have oil more than them. We have manpower. We have rain. We have land that we can plant what we need to eat. Okay? But they don't have all of these things. One thing that they have is leadership. Until we are filled, I love the English that Mr. Bello was using. We have systemic problem. What is the systemic problem? It is the failure of leadership. We have no leader. Basic. That is simple. And that leader, see, when you pour oil on people's head, it flows from the top downward. And so it starts with the person of the president to the Senate and the assembly, the governors and the state assemblies to the local government. There is nothing that can happen. You see, I think I used to think until 3 days ago when I saw President Buhari's interview. I used to think President Buhari is perhaps, in his old age, he is out of points, he's out of touch with things. That it is only people that are under him that are doing all of these things. But listening to him, I knew that these are things that he's saying, and these people are they are just repeating what he's saying, like what Mr. Bello was saying about the fact that they should the restructuring should start from the local government. How is that even possible? If we don't restructure the constitution, if we don't restructure the presidency, restructure can never happen anywhere in Nigeria. Thank you.
Let me quickly raise an observation or information. You see, my brother, Mr. Fadumo Paul, I'm not, and I will not for once support the fact that this government has failed, the government under President Muhammadu Buhari. But let me quickly also bring you an example. Look at the issue of Kemi Adeosun. That was in 2016-17, when Professor Oleyede came in as JAMB registrar and he returned billions back to the government coffers. Recall that the same Adeosun was a former commissioner in Ogun State. Recall that they screened him at the level of parties, at the level of INEC. They never saw that his NYC certificate was fake. Now, until he became a minister, and he told all the parastatals and MDAs in Ministry of Education that they should be audited, that if an MDA
Michael, are you there? Michael, what is happening in Nigeria?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think Mr. Bello is on.
Yes. It's network issue. Just bear with us. Is one of the things happening to us in Nigeria. We know with time we get over all of this. Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Bello was making a point, but I think we still have him back. We still have him back on this conversation. Yes, let me come to Mr. Isho. I know you have always given heavy knocks to the presidency, to the federal government on issues around. But judging from what the president said very recently, I think in the interview that he granted at Rice TV, he told the governors, like, okay, normally tell them, go back to your state to fix the problem around insecurity. And let us come to look at all of this as well, because I reflected over it. Well, be that as it may, we may have our own different opinion. But judging from what has been happening since 1999, and I would sincerely appreciate if we put consideration where the journey began. If we put it into consideration before we make some of these statements, so that it won't just be as if all of us on the show we are anti-Buhari people. Now, even there are state governors that have been receiving heavy allocations. They receive security votes. They get 13% oil derivation for the oil producing states. And it is expected that all of this money should have been judiciously used. And he pointed something very germane, because it's as if the local government administration has been cut off from the governance structure in Nigeria. Because we know what our Sherikis, our KBSCs, our Magajis, we know our Azes, we know what they can do. They are part of the governance structure. Do you think President Muhammadu Buhari was right with that particular statement, in the sense that the local government has been crippled or perhaps killed? What do you agree with that?
Like I said, other time, when people blamed the government at the center on how the local governments are being teleguided by the governor or the governors, I said in other time that Muhammadu Buhari made all efforts to ensure that local governments remain a viable third tier of government, simply because he has warned the governors to allow the local government to be independent. But unfortunately, most of these governors hardly allow the local government under their jurisdiction to be independent on their own. That is why today, when people are talking about progressive governance, people premise it around APC or PDP, forgetting that we have progressive among the PDP governors, we have progressive among the APC governors. Because when you look at their disposition, Governor Rufai, for instance, said that it can be possible for local government to be on their own. It's a PDP, is an APC governor. Why the governor of Nasarawa, Adamawa State, even on the ongoing conversation around constitutional review, he clamored that local government should be independent of their own. He's from PDP, and that is why I do tell my people there that we should not limit the argument as an average analyst to APC or PDP, but rather define the individual leading a state. From what you have said, President Buhari is right in one area, in the sense that none of this governor has come out to inform their respective citizens that this is how much we are collecting as security force. In that area, what has the federal government, done to check them that they can't harbor the money they are collecting from the federal without explaining to the people they are leading? Federal governments need to talk on that seriously. You need to expose them why they have been covering what they are collecting as security force. That is one area. The second area, why I say federal government is culpable, is that some governors have been mistreated. Even the recent Amoteco, we knew what the body language of the president, the body language of the presidency, the body language was IG. They didn't want the Amoteco to fly. Notwithstanding that they have been carried along in the process that later bet the Amoteco. Why? If actually they want us to, decentralize the security architecture of the country, I see no reason why the state policing should not fly even up to this moment. Like I made mention in 2014 convert, they talked about the state policing, how each state should define, police and advanced crime there. Are they, centralize the security architecture into the federal government at the center? No, even America that we are copying from. Is that what is obtainable there? Can't each state define how to restructure the security architecture without the intervention of the government at the center? Even the so-called Amoteco, federal government said that it must be subjected to Nigerian police. So, in that wise, have they allowed them to operate in the way they want their respective states to be governed, security-wise? No. And like I've said, it's not necessary for us to say that we must copy, from A to Z of what is obtainable in US. They said we are practicing, a mono aspect of the presidential system of government in America. Forgetting that in America, they have 2 senators. We're having 3 senators. In America, the vice president is still the Senate president at the legislative arm. So must we copy?
Thank you, Mr. Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Let me quickly wrap up. Sorry. I was saying something. I'm sorry. Let me quickly wrap up.
Okay.
Let me quickly wrap up. So I was talking about Kemi Adeosun. You will note that Kemi Adeosun came from the Omega. I was talking about leadership capacity lost from the Alpha to the Omega. That means from the top to down. How about from down to up? Kemi Adeosun was coming from Ogun State. She came from Ogun State as a commissioner. That means she must have gone through House of Assembly screening before she became a commissioner. None of the House of Assembly members saw that her NYC certificate was fictitious until she became a minister and she ordered for the audit of parastatals. And 2-3 days after, we got to know that our NYC certificate was fictitious and she resigned. That is to tell you that there's a systemic error. There's a systemic problem. The system is problematic right from Ogun State till we get to the federal government. So if we now have people who want to expose corruption, they will be afraid of the systemic exposure. That is the problem.
I agree with you. I agree with you that there is error from up to down. But whose responsibility is it? Who is the most powerful man in Nigeria? Michael, you continue.
Buhari wasn't a president when Adeosun was a commissioner. Jonathan
Yeah,
was the president.
It wasn't.
So it's not a function. It's not a function of who is the president.
We still have the floor. We still have the floor.
Was Adeosun not sworn in as the minister?
No, Adeosun was formerly a commissioner. She was formerly a commissioner under Amosu in Ogun State.
But was she not sworn in as a minister?
So yeah, that is to tell you that is it Buhari that
the point where she was exposed is almost irrelevant if you are going by your point. The point is that she rose from wherever she's coming from up to that level. Even at the federal level, she was still sanctioned. It's only when she was about to reveal some people's secret that they brought out her secret. The secret is no secret at the top, at that level. The secret is no secret. That's the point. Continue, Michael.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's part of the democratic journey, and we are making a big, heavy contributions. Yeah, thank you. We are glad to have the village boy on the show, joining us all the way from Calgary, Canada. I know something must have prompted him to actually join this conversation. Yeah, perhaps the village boy want to take us through history as an historian this afternoon. So please, the village boy, Canada. So village boy, you have the floor, please. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm the village boy. The village boy has his roots, and that is what is important. Now you permit me to speak Yoruba a bit here. When the fish get rotten from the head, not from the tail. When you look, the problem today in Nigeria started in 1966. As at 1966, before the coup, we were in a trial and error mode. We were not perfect. We had the 1960 Constitution, then we have the 1963 Republican Constitution that granted autonomy to the 3 regions, which later became 4 regions. Then, with the stroke of the pen in 1966, we were imposed with unitary constitution, where we have a very powerful central and weak components. Unfortunately, the 1979 constitution, the 1999 constitutions, all take cue from that military decree of 1966. And what does that mean? We usually have 3 lists on the legislative. We have the exclusive list, which is by federal government. Then we have the concurrent list. Then we have the residual list. Concurrent lists are those things that the state and the federal government can legislate on. Exclusive lists are those things that only federal government can legislate on. Now there's another clause. When there is a conflict between what the state legislates on and the federal government legislature takes precedence, meaning that the state is powerless. The residual list, they are things that are not, they are too pedestrian. They don't affect polity, as it were. So if you don't take cognizance of these, all the other postulations is just an exercise in futility. That Buhari said, governor, challenging governor, it is, to me, it's escapist. That is an escapist argument. You can't slap a child and ask that child not to cry. So if you now say, okay, almost everything that affects life in its rudimentary level is controlled by the federal government, the little power you give to the state, you say that the moment you make a law and your law is in conflict with what federal government wants, the federal government will take precedence. It's like the state hands are tied. What we want, if restructuring is, if we have a restructuring, what we have that the governor, we have no choice than to be accountable to the people. Today, if I want to be a governor, I don't need the support of my people. I go to the presidency to get my support. When the federal government supports you to be a governor, you can be a governor. So, and because of that, the governors owe allegiance to the presidency, not to Nigeria, not to their state. These are reality. If you don't, all this grammar we are blowing, they have no effect, because we got to a point they will say, oh, it is not the law, it's against the law. The law, the constitution is a bubble trap, and the people is governed by the constitution. You cannot build a good house on a faulty foundation. So if the president is, if you guys, what you are postulating to me is like, you are asking somebody to go and start building from the third floor. The local government is the third floor of a building. That is not where you start building. You start building from the constitution, then the federal government is the first floor. The constitution and the federal government, they are weak. They are, I mean, when you want to build a 3-story building, your foundation will be more strong, will be stronger when you want to build a bungalow. Now we build a bungalow and you are asking somebody to start, and you say the roof is leaking or the roof is wobbling. You say you should go and start repairing the third floor. What happened to the foundation? So if the foundation be destroyed, the Bible says there's nothing the righteous can do. Apology for those who are not Christian. That is the reality. The reality of it is like the federal government is too powerful. The federal government is inefficient. So one thing is just like you acquire too much power, but you don't even know how to use it. The federal government is not accountable. There is too much impunity. And the state governors, they are the children of their father. The impunity they see in the federal government is what they are replicating in their states. When you see the president who is an imperial majesty, the governor is also doing his own local imperial majesty in his domain. And the same thing, it goes down to the local government. Local government today, local government chairman will insult the Oba. It's more powerful. It was because they all copy from the head. Because you don't, everybody, president, governor, local government, they have become KBAC, in which case nobody can ask them questions. When you ask them questions, they say you are disgruntled element, they call you names. On the democracy day, and knowing that full well that freedom of expression is one of the fundamentals of democracy. What do we have today? Massive arrest of lawful protester. And you are saying who is controlling those arrests? Is it local government chairman that asked police to go and arrest protesters in Ojota? Is it local government chairman? Can local government chairman authorize a policeman, a DPO? If you arrest a goat thief and you take him to the DPO and the DPO receives a call from Abuja from IGP, it will release him. And you are now saying local government should begin restructuring. That is one of the most unwise, I don't want to use the other word, argument I've ever had in my life. No, you cannot. When the head is sick and you are asking me to go and amend the finger, what can the finger do? The brain controls the body, not the finger. The finger will not move well when the brain is not working. The reality today is like we have octopus federal government. And until we clip the wings of the federal government, Nigeria is not going to move forward. It is as simple as that. This is no sentiment. I mean, have no sentiment. I don't belong to any political party. This is, if you don't fix this thing, we are just going to be like a madman who is driving and is going roundabout, and you ask him why is driving roundabout. You say because there's a sign that is a roundabout, and he keeps on rounding about. So, which means it's not going to go anywhere. So, the constitution is faulty, and that gives us a faulty foundation. Unless you break the foundation and relay it, we cannot move forward. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was not going to come because I had other engagements. Even as I'm here, I had to ignore so many other things because I don't want this to just go away like this. let us face the reality. The foundation, our constitution, is 40. Until we address that, we are going nowhere. Don't even compare ourselves with US. There is no basis for that comparison. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the village boy, for that contribution from your hand, quite historical, and we are very grateful for that. There's something very important before we go on the show that I would love us to actually equally discuss, maybe in just one minute. Yes, we believe that the democracy, some will argue that it is still relatively young, some will say, oh, it's not young, it's a baby, and whatever. Those are public opinions. But in my own particular expression, I still believe that our democratic journey as a nation is connected to the subsequent elections that will be taking place, particularly the 2023 general elections, that the cloud rather is gradually gathering. When people are gathering momentum, we can see a lot of visitations, consultations, party politicking already going on in the country. But I think it should be very nice if we can actually postulate or make some propositions as to what we should look out forward to, because this democracy seems not to be working, just like we all expressed, and it has already its root to our constitutional foundation. What I call constitutional foundation to political problem in Nigeria. So what should be the priority or the priorities of Nigerians as we look forward, as we gravitate towards 2023 general election, which is another core or cardinal factor that determines the success or the failure of our democracy? Mr. Bello, just in 30 seconds, you have the floor.
Thank you. I think as a Nigerian and as Nigerians, if any politician is telling us he or she will bring God from heaven, we should not be too carried away. We should ask, how will you bring God? Through ladder, through rope, or through disappearance? So until that person is able to give us the astute information, and we'll check whether this information he has given us is implementable enough. All they want to tell us is all we want to hear, not all they should tell us. So until then, we can pick a viable candidate. But as we speak now, I can't beat my chest for any viable candidate on ground.
Wow, that is a word of an elder. Yes, Mr. Paul, please, you have the floor. What should we look out for as we gravitate towards 2023 general elections, which is part of our democratic journey as a nation?
Well, I don't even, personally, I don't currently see 2023. From the way we are going, I don't see, it doesn't even look, it looks bleak in the sense that people can't even protest. People can't even speak. You know, it may be, some people are saying maybe the next is going to be Facebook, you know, to shut down Facebook, and as they have shut down Twitter. So what is democracy? When people are not allowed to speak freely, when you can write something on Facebook or Twitter and somebody comes to arrest you, or you girls, they make you disappear, as they do in some other African countries. So I'm not, I'm not impressed, and I'm not that of hopeful as much as I want to be optimistic. But I hope that that Nigeria survives this current Buhari and this current administration.
Wow, thank you so much. These are opinions that we are all expressing, and the fear catches us almost every day. Yes, now, Mr. Isho, the ball is in your court. Do you kindly give us your own perception? Let's hear your own opinion as we gravitate towards 2023 general election. Because Mr. Paul is in his own opinion, made us understand that, he doesn't see that election coming. But all of these ethnic agitations are seen across borders, perhaps one of the reasons, or as its root, or its linkages to 2023 general elections. Sir, you have the floor.
That President Buhari needs to display as the president of Nigeria, not a president of the region. And when you look at it, that the primary responsibility of the government is to ensure that the security and welfare of the people are well protected. The absence of this led to the present situation of where we find ourselves to. And I need to key behind the pole position that politicians are thinking of 2023, forgetting the current challenges facing us as a country until that is addressed. And it can only address when the president, the governors are taking political steps by ensuring that whoever found wanting, just like President Buhari pronounced yesterday, that whoever found with AK-47 should be shot at that point. But I need to remind you that at a point he has said this and nobody was shot, even before he made the pronunciation yesterday. Let the governors, let the leaders behave as people that really want to serve us until the protection of lives and property and the welfare of the people are well secured before we can talk about 2023.
Yeah, thank you so much for that contribution. Now I want to go to Village Boy, but in another dimension. One of our eminent scholars of political science in Nigeria did said in one of his books, authored, that I think democracy in Nigeria, the worship of an unknown God. That's Professor Ayuade, Emeritus Professor in University of Ibadan. In your own conclusive statement, as we commemorate our Democracy Day being June 12th, do you agree that democracy in Nigeria is still the worship of an unknown God?
Well, thank you very much. I will reframe your question. Do we practice democracy in Nigeria? No. The answer is no. We are a feudalistic society, and we are now having a borrowed gap of democracy. We are in borrowed. You know, when you there's a way you borrow there's a proverb in Yoruba, but let me not speak Yoruba again. When you borrow a garment, it's either be undersized, too tight for you, or oversized. So democracy is a borrowed garment for us because we are a feudalist society. So the cloth is not fitting unless we can pull away that feudalistic tendency and we restore the office of the citizens. The office of the citizens is supposed to be the highest office in the land. Even when you look at what Mr. Isho is saying, we are giving too much power to the president and the governor. It's like we are saying that if the president or the governor don't do things, our destiny is frozen. Because we have neglected the office of the citizen. We undermine the power and the position of average citizen in the country. And those in government, they take that and take it for granted. So until we restore the office of the citizens in Nigeria, which give us power to protest fundamental human rights, Nigeria 2033 is a long pipe dream. I don't know.
Who then will restore it, sir?
We need the collective actions. We need the collective actions of the citizens, people of goodwill. If you go back to history, if you go back to French Revolution, what happened? We have writers who are writing about the eve of the heel of the society. Then we have people who say, look, talk is cheap. People say we cannot just keep talking. We have to do something. So the writings of intellectuals empower people to embark on that revolution. I say, look, they activated the office of the citizen, and that is what gave back to the French Revolution. So until we activate the office of the citizen, not necessarily for violence, but say, look, enough is enough. We can't continue like this. Because today, as an average citizen living in Nigeria, are you sleeping with your two eyes closed? We will know the reality. Talk is cheap. Oh, of course, I said it in my book that when you ask somebody to mark his own script, he will give himself pass mark. He will give himself A, excellent. Because it's marking his script. You can't mark your own script and draw 0 and draw A that you do so this and call yourself Olodo Rabata. You won't call yourself Olodo Rabata. You will say that you have done well. Of course, at best, you will give excuses where you could have not, maybe why you didn't do better. So the citizens have to rise to understand their rights and obligations. There are two sides of the coin. Citizen has rights, they have obligations. One of the obligations is to vote and be voted for. Now, because we don't vote, only those, many of us, on our election day, we face our TV or we will be reading this, we don't vote. I have said since 1983, till I left Nigeria, I voted in every election. I wrote that in my book. I voted in every election. There is no even there are some election I waited till they counted the vote in my polling booth. I wait inside discussions because I believe that I will have no moral obligation, moral right to complain of bad government if I did not vote. It doesn't matter whether the person I voted for win or does not win, but I have done my own civic responsibility to vote. So, and because of that, I have the right to ask questions when things are not going the way it should go. Also, don't forget that democracy is a game of number. Go out and vote. Vote your conscience.
Thank you so much.
That is if the conscience is working.
That is if we are voting now. That is,
Yeah,
But 2023 is very gloomy. I'm not a prophet of doom. It is very gloomy. So it's like they are landmines. But I'm optimistic of one thing. In 1998, we have our tongue in our cheeks. Nigeria was in palpable fear. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Then suddenly, God intervened.
okay.
Thank you so much.
God is also
Now
going to
we have
intervene this
resulted to anchoring it on God. But to our viewers out there, we have been encouraged this evening, and all our guests have said almost similar thing. Is about participatory governance, participatory democracy. There is no democracy without active participation. We have been encouraged, we have been charged to be part of these the quest for better society. There is nothing for us without us. And I mean, Rome was never built in a day. And we hope that as we approach these 2023 elections, being part of our democratic journey, we hope things will turn out for better. And on that note, I want to sincerely appreciate all our guests this evening. Let me start with my very senior brother, Mr. Bello. Thank you for, I know your busy schedule. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. I must sincerely thank my very senior teacher, Mr. Isho. Thank you for always joining this conversation. Of course, I must say that our viewers have really enjoyed the conversation this evening. And to Mr. Bolutife Oluwadele joining us from all the way from Canada, we say thank you so much. And the man behind the engine, we sincerely appreciate all of you. And we want to encourage you that the platform is created to actually have our opinions shared, just like the name implies, opinion sharers. We are mindful of individuals we bring on, to render their views on the show. And we always encourage you that you give us your feedback. Hesitate not to send in questions, and we believe that we'll do justice to it. So thank you once again for creating our time. I am your host, Olaogun Michael. Thank you and bye for now.
Thank you. Before we go, please don't forget that in case you write, just like the village boy has talked about the French Revolution, our writers contributed opinion molders. If you write, please do send in your articles. You can send your articles to opinion sharers. You see the email going through on the screen. So you can send in your, okay, I think the email address is not there, but the email address is contact@opinionsharers.com. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.